We go interview these brothers and hear the story. This man did 32 years straight in a Philadelphia prison, in Philadelphia prisons. You understand? And when he case for himself, no legal aid help him, nobody help him, no family member help him. He don't even have no family, he don't know himself. He lost in the system from a youth and he helped himself out. I think he's like 66, 67 years old. Most of his life he do 32. Like he say, most of his life he do in jail because he do 32 straight and plus he do about 6 or 7 years in between, you know, back and forth, 2 years here. And he's talking about in his 70s, early 70s, you know. He's a grown man, but thankfully he here with you to share his story and he's not dead and then nobody had to tell his story. He telling his own story.
Like the judge who ended up giving me my freedom, when he read my procedural history, he cussed the DA's office out and told him, y'all been hiding. He said, I just knew this was an easy denial for me because somebody with this amount of time in had to have exhausted the entire appeal process. He said, well, when I read this man's procedural history and seen that it was his very first appeal, that y'all been hiding under the rug for 25 years, he said, I'm not having it. I'm not having it.
That's how long it took you to get up?
Yeah, but
25 years?
yeah.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Wanduku Wayzo Naba. Everybody been calling me Wayzo since I was 14.
What's your nationality?
Well, don't really know. I'm black and Hispanic.
Black
I was told that my father was Spanish. I don't know what kind of Spanish. I don't know whether he was Mexican, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Venezuelan. I never met him, never seen him. I was adopted.
What age was adopted at?
Around 4.5, 5 years old.
4.5? So you lived in an orphanage until you was 4 or 5 years old?
No. The lady that adopted me, she never would try to tell me my origins. And ironically, she wrote me in a letter, which I still have, when I was about 52 years old, that my mother was a lady of the night, the older generation. That's what they call prostitutes. You know, was a lady of the night. And to be truthful, she, from what she said, that she actually sold me to my mother and a man that my mother was going with at the time named Jimmy Troop.
Okay. And this lady name was?
I don't really know whether her last name was, but I know her first name was Virginia.
Oh, and you never hunted on. That's supposed to be a biological mom, right?
Yeah, she actually, I guess she had second thoughts about it because she actually took me home and I met some of my half brothers and sisters.
What age was that?
About 5.
About 5. So this is before you got adopted?
No, they was doing the proceedings.
Oh, this one you got. So you got a vague memory of your early childhood with your biological parent?
Yeah, well, due to, what I went through in life, I can remember almost everything back until I was 5 years old.
Alright, and this lady here, who adopted you, how long you lived with her for?
Until I was 14.
And her name is?
Ruth Elizabeth Hughes.
So that's your mom, that's who you know as mom?
That's who raised me.
Alright. And your dad?
No,
She was a single parent? Did she have a dad or no?
Yeah, she said that she was married, but I never saw him. I think that was just for society purposes. But she ended up going with a man later on who I always called my stepfather. He was a father figure in my life. To be truthful, I worshipped him. And his name was Charles Crumley Jr.
She never had no kids?
Yeah, she had a biological daughter that was 9 years older than me named Bobby. And from what she told me, which also I don't have any proof of, she also had a son that died when he was very, very young. And I think that's the reason why she adopted me.
Where's Bobby today?
She died about 10, 15 years ago.
She used to keep in contact with you in your incarceration?
No.
No?
don't really want to get into that because it may come off and sound like I'm bitter, you know, something like that. But
Really different.
yeah.
So as far as, so you grew up with a single mom, one stepsister.
Yeah, well, her mother, who I call my grandmother, and I still call my grandmother because I loved her. As far as I was concerned, she was my real mother. She lived with us until we moved from the projects and moved to, we was the second black family on Spangler Street between 33rd and 34th of Allegheny and Clearfield. And I went to Catholic schools, you know, most of my life. I actually was the only other black person at Georgetown Prep in Rockville, Maryland. At the time, it was supposed to have been known as the most prestigious preparatory school in America. I actually went to school with Ted Kennedy's sons. And I went through an identity crisis there. So I left out in 11th grade and they tried to put me in Simon Gratz. As a matter of fact, they put me in Simon Gratz. And I was in Gratz for about a month until Gratz principal told my mom that I had already surpassed the curriculum that they had at Gratz. So there was no need for me to be there.
What grade that was?
11th grade.
Oh, so almost time to graduate.
And then I went to Marine Corps.
How long you spent in the Marine Corps?
3.5 years.
3.5 years? How you come out to the Marine Corps?
Came out on an administrative discharge. It's one of my, matter of fact, my first real regret in my life. If I could do it all over again, I probably would have stayed in the Marine Corps 10 to 20 years.
Let's back up a little bit. What age was that? How old were you when you
Well,
went to?
being the fact that I never had a birth certificate, or never seen a birth certificate, the lady that adopted me signed a paper saying I was 17, but I was only 16 years old when I went in the Marine Corps.
Oh, yeah, young.
So I actually missed Vietnam by 1 year because you had to be 18.
What made you think you were 16 years old? If you
Well,
know, if your paperwork wasn't straight, what made you think you was younger than you is?
Well, that's what the paperwork that she had said.
Right.
In fact, right now, if they was to do a background check and check the records, they don't know what year I was born. They say April 12th or 14th of either 1953 or 1955.
So you never investigated either? So
No, I never really sat down long enough in one place to go through all of that. And they didn't have this, what they have now, you know, the
ancestry, DNA,
ancestry
and
and
all
all that. Yeah,
Did you ever try it?
no.
Are you willing to try it?
Oh yeah, most definitely when I get time, you know.
You got home kids, they're cheap.
Yeah.
So, all right, so you say you don't know, you spent 3 years in the Marine Corps, you went in like 16, 17, when you came out at 20, and that's what age you end up on the streets? When you came home, what happened?
Well, I used my military ID to get a room at the YMCA down 15th and Arch. It's no longer there. They done turned that, I think, into family court or something like that. And I stayed there for a while. My mom, the lady that adopted me.
When you say a while, a couple of months, a year, 2 years, what's a while?
A few months.
A few months?
Yeah. She was a job developer for a CETA program back there. It was a very good program they had here in Philadelphia. And I was going to school. They was paying me to actually go to school, take classes. And I met a dude named Robert Snowden. He was 28 years old. He was way older than me. And we ended up becoming friends. So I called him one day and told him I needed to make some money. And he told me to meet him at 13th and Locust at Dewey's. That was a real popular restaurant chain they had back then. At 2 o'clock in the morning. And I asked him, I said, the first thing I thought I had was he talking about robbing Dewey's? And I was like, well, what are we gonna do at 2 o'clock in the morning? He said, don't worry about it, just come down here. We're gonna have tea and toast. And I went down there and we sat in the booth and actually had tea and toast until 2:30 when the clubs let out. And when the clubs let out, that's when all the prostitutes, bulldaggers, transvestites, drug dealers, and hustlers came in the Dewey's, because that was the after hours spot. And he introduced me to almost all of them because he knew all of them. So I ended up from there being a Center City hustler.
All of who? All of the hustlers in Philly? All of them?
Yeah, all of them.
All of the people in the club?
All the prostitutes, the homosexual boosters, the transvestites,
Well, he used to be hustling down there?
Yeah, he knew them all.
So you introduced you to them?
They introduced me to them, and after that, I started hanging down there. Then next thing you know, all the Italian mafia club owners start knowing me and told their bouncers to automatically let me in the club, because I wasn't really old enough to get in the clubs and after hour spots.
So when you was down there, you was hustling down there, or you was just hanging out?
You can make money just hanging out.
How was that?
If you want to know the particulars, I can tell you.
How is that? Yeah.
Well, being the fact that I knew most of the hustlers, certain ethnic groups would come down there looking to purchase drugs, a girl, whatever. And I could direct them to who they needed to see, or go there and get the stuff for them and bring it back and make me a little money.
Yeah, running traffic. You used to run traffic.
Yeah, so then by me having money, when the boosters came down there, I would purchase whatever they had. It didn't matter. I wasn't going to be bartering or whatever you got, let me get that. And then I would sell it to the club owners or the bouncers. So this is what gave me access, constantly going back and forth. I was actually an original Center City Tony Long.
And what year was this?
This was 1974.
1974.
Yeah, this was 1974.
What age did you really start hitting the streets at? Like you start hustling?
1974. A real important incident took place that changed the direction of my life. I met a prostitute from Bradenton, Florida. She liked me. But at the time, I was messing with 2-3 other females. And she kept trying to get me to leave them alone and just deal with her. And I wasn't having that. I passed out on the street in Rittenhouse Square. A prostitute that knew me put me in a cab and they rushed me down to, what's that hospital? Down 8th Street.
8th Street?
Yeah. Jefferson. And come to find out, they told me they needed to give me a spinal tap. Found out I had spinal meningitis. And being the fact that I was adopted, I didn't know my family medical history, and at the time I didn't have any insurance. And the girl came up there to see me every day. Every day. She would come up there, do my hair, do my nails, bring me food, give me a little roll of money.
So white woman or black woman? White?
Who?
The lady you be speaking about?
No, she was a black girl from Bradenton, Florida.
Okay.
She looked just like Donna Summer. She could have passed for Donna Summer's twin. One day she came up and showed me some cleaners tickets. And I was like, what's that? She said, yeah, I went to all them girls you messing with and beat them up and took your clothes from them and put them in the cleaner. So when you get out, you gotta come through me to get your clothes. Hey. And she said to me, she said, Tony, I'm hot, I gotta go home. And I was like, bye, what you want me to do? I'm laying up in the hospital bed with an IV tomorrow. She said, don't you want to go to Florida with me? I said, well, go to Florida with you, I ain't know nobody down there. And she said, they got them cars that you like down there. I had a fetish for antique automobiles to complement my style because I liked to dress in the 30s. I was infatuated with everything in the 30s. Antique furniture, the global styles, maybe even the so-called gangsterism. I actually told the doctor, when he said that, I called the doctor, I said, doctor, take the stuff out of my office. And he was like, no, you need to be there on some more. I was like, listen, man, you told me I was close to dying. I said, I don't have nothing. I said, if I'm gonna die, let me die trying to have something. She took my clothes and flew down there and sent me a plane ticket back the very next day. And I flew to Florida, the first time in my life, on July the 2nd, 1974. I was taking either a chance or a calculated risk because when I got off the plane, I only had 2 round dimes in my pocket. I wouldn't even been able to call back to Philadelphia and ask nobody for any kind of assistance or money to get back to Philly. You know. And sure enough, her and another girl came and picked me up at the airport.
Well, she had her own house. She was living by herself down there?
No, she actually, she was hustling. You know, she was a prostitute.
Right.
You know?
So who she was living with down there? Who you moved in with?
Well, we actually...
Hotels?
A motel. It was called the Kentucky Colonel Motor Corps. Believe it or not, it was like an efficiency apartment. It had your own parking space in the front of the cottage. It had a laundry area, and it had a swimming pool. And it only cost $50 a week.
How long you stayed in Florida?
It only took me 30 days to come up with the money to purchase this antique vehicle. I bought a 1937 Packard, 5-wheeler straight 8. From a man by the name of Paul Fields in Bradenton, Florida. So I actually left out. I told you I got to Florida July the 2nd, 1974. And I left out driving the car, no driver's license, didn't even know how to operate it because it had a starter button on the dashboard and it was a 3-speed standard. And I left out driving the car on August the 8th, 1974.
So let me ask you a question now. The Floridian who bring it, this was your main chick. How many girls you had? Because you said she came and picked you up with another girl. Was that your girl too, or that was just the main girl, your girl?
No, in fact, that other girl, her name was Carlotta Christopher. She ended up...
So this girl, what's her name, Bridget? What's her name?
Ginger.
Ginger. She make you a pimp. She turned you on.
No, I thought I was a pimp before I met her. Remember I told you I was messing around with 3 other girls, and she went and beat them up.
And changed the girls, yeah.
Beat them up and took my clothes from out their little hotel rooms.
So when Ginger moved you to Florida, she was bringing in the dollars.
Yep. And here's the thing, like. That when she came and picked me up from the airport, she gave me 800 and change dollars, and I was like, "What you involved in? Because ain't no way in the world you."
So as soon as you came, she blessed you. How long it took you to come back to Philadelphia?
So I get the vehicle, and I only got maybe like $300 left to my name. They used to have a thing called the auto train. It was in Sanford, Florida, but it costed $500 to put your car on the auto train. And I didn't have enough money. So now I come up with the great decision that we're gonna drive back to Philadelphia. Why? I want to get back to Philadelphia and show off that I done reached this dream that all my so-called friends and buddies that told me I never would accomplish. And the reason I'm dwelling on it is because that was the start of letting me know that I could actually accomplish what I set my mind.
You can do things in life. You can be somebody.
Yeah, so the crazy thing about it was I'm trying to hurry up and get back. I let her drive while I got some sleep in the back seat. The next thing I know, I heard the car acting crazy. And I wake up, and we right on 95, right across the street from the Howard Johnson's. So I paid a couple $100 for a tow truck to come and tow the car to their garage up the road. Hardyville, South Carolina. That's where it was at. And I never made it back to the car. My idea was to stop at my old Marine Corps base, Camp Lejeune, which is all in the news now. You know, because they had a lot of prostitutes down there on Court Street. So I figured, you know, she could make the money to run back and get the car fixed and continue on. As fortune would have it, she ended up getting arrested for prostitution.
How long you guys stayed there for?
About a week before she got arrested.
Before you got arrested?
And I never made it back to the car because the feds had a warrant out for my arrest because we was cashing government checks in order to acquire the money to purchase the car in the first place. So I ended up doing 2 years in the federal penitentiary.
So you did the 2 years in the federal penitentiary, and when you came home, where you came home to?
No, it didn't even go that smooth because I actually did, I think 14 months. Back then, I heard it's a girls' FCI now, but they sent me to a place called Tallahassee, federal prison in Tallahassee, Florida. And I ended up getting my custody, and they sent me to a place called Morgantown, West Virginia. From Morgantown, I made, I forget what you call it, work release, pre-release, parole or whatever. And they sent me to a halfway house in Camden, New Jersey. Volunteers of America, 150 Cooper Street. And I met a Greek and Armenian girl down on 13th and Locust. She worked at a Mafia Topless joint called the Golden 33. She ended up going in the bank on 40th and Chestnut with a note saying she had a bomb in her handbag. And they came and arrested me. They charged me with attempted robbery, yada, yada, yada.
They charged you with that?
Yeah, they charged her too, but you know.
You was in the bank with her?
No.
They just caught you in the house?
I guess she told them that she lived with me and so forth and so on. When we was at court, one of the investigators got up and said, Your Honor, we ran a check on the alleged Dawn Synchronite, age 23. Her real name is Donna Elizabeth Voisin. She's 16 years of age. So you can imagine what they charged me with. Anyway, fortunately for me, she ended up telling them the truth. That she had lied to me and told me that her family was rich and she had an account, bank account up there and so forth and so on. And when they finally let me out of jail, I had to go back to the halfway house over there in Camden, New Jersey. And I said, my name is Anthony Hughes, 299-34-120. That's the federal number that they give you. As soon as I said that number, she knew I must have been authentic. She said, oh, I know who you are. She said, go upstairs and pack your stuff. We gotta send you back to prison. I said, for what? I was innocent. They let me go. She said, well, you wasn't where you were supposed to be, so you were in violation. And I went up and shit shaved and bathed and went out the back window and went to New York and partied hardy until I ran out of money and was hungry and tired. And I actually went down and knocked on the door at 150 Park Road. MCC, which was brand new. It wasn't even 6 months old at that time. And I knocked on the door, and the guy came to the door, and I said, I'm supposed to be in here. He looked at me, busted out laughing. I know I must have looked like something the cat drug in. And he closed the door in my face. Now I look at the door again, and I actually seen the bell. So I pressed the bell, and he came, and he opened up the door, and he started to like cuss me out and say something. I said, now my name is Hughes, Anthony, 29934-120. Wait a minute. He went in, I guess he ran me through the computer, came back over to him, he said, come on in.
So you signed yourself into jail?
Yeah, I signed myself in because, once again, I only had a 2-year sentence.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't make no sense for me to be running around, and I was doing bad.
Right.
By me turning myself in and messed the paperwork up in the computer, and they sent me back to Petersburg, Virginia. And when I got back to Petersburg, Virginia, I only had 57 days left to do. So I got out of Petersburg, Virginia, February the 5th, 1977. February the 5th, 1977. I had a bald head and a summer suit on. He gave me $25 and provided me with the suit. I went to New York. I got on a bus to go to New York, and stopping at those little bus stations in all the different cities and states on the way, I had ate up most of the $25. When I got off, they had snow drifts outside that deep. And once again, I had a bald head and a summer suit on with about $6 to my name. I didn't know what to do. So I took a deep breath, and I went and got on the IRT, and I rode out to Brooklyn to a Panamanian dread named Red Caps, Gates, that I knew of, and bought a nickel of weed. And for the old timers, whoever watching this, they know that weed used to come in a small, like, manila envelope that they used to put pills in, about that big. Now mind you now, it's like 25, 30 degrees outside with snow drifts this deep. I got on a bald head and a summer suit, no hat, no coat, no none of that. People looking at me like I'm crazy. And back then, when you got on the trains in New York, everybody, all the young people always walked all the way through the train to the last car. And as I was walking through the train, I saw a newspaper that somebody had left, so I grabbed it and I sat back there and I started rolling joints. And all the, the younger people in the car was just looking at me and watching. Finally, one of the dudes said, yo, my man, what's that? I said, that's that Colombian gold. He said, you selling it? I said, yeah. How much? $1 a stick. So I actually rolled 27 joints out that nickel bag of weed. And while I was on the subway, in my mind, I'm trying to say, where can I go? Because I didn't know New York like that. I said, where can I go that I can be warm and sell these joints at the same time? So it dawned on me, go back down to 42nd Street to all the movie theaters and the little peep shows. Because most of the ushers that worked at those movie theaters and peep shows, they was young kids from out the neighborhoods. So that's what I did. I went down to 42nd Street and I seen a black usher, young kid, and I called him, yo, and he came up and the first thing he said was, damn, man, where your coat? I said, yo, man, I just got out of jail, man. I said, I need to get in here to be warm, and I ain't got no money. I said, but I got some nice weed. He said, you should. I said, man, listen, if it ain't no good, put me out. He said, all right, come on. And I went and they had 3 rows. And I went and got in the middle row in the last seat. And when the movie started, I lit one of the joints and shotgun the movie theater. And it wasn't no more than a minute, 2 minutes later, you could see dudes turning their heads sniffing. Yo, who got that? And I was like, right here, my man, loose joints, $1,000 a stick. And the reason I'm saying this is because this became my hustle for the next 6 months. I used to actually, they had these leather pouches they had came up with, they had a key lock on it. It was like big envelopes, like you would put a card, like a holiday card in, and they had an adjustable leather strap. I bought a burgundy one. And I used to roll 500 loose joints a night and put in that leather pouch. And I would just go wherever.
So you didn't have no competition?
I would just go wherever. If I was walking down the street and I saw you and your girl, or just you, as I walked by you, I would give you a compliment. The reason I'm saying this is this will develop my social skills later on in life. I would just walk by you and say, how you doing, my man? Y'all got some nice weed, make your walk a little better. And you laugh, and you say, is it good? And my outfit was a suit and tie. My outfit was a suit and tie with a pearl stick pin for the tie. And I would just point to myself. I said, this is how I make my living. This incident that I was arrested and subsequently convicted for happened on October the 16th, 1988. Two $5 crack prostitutes who we later found out had pending criminal charges themselves, picked my picture out of a book that the police had of black men that wore their hair in dreadlocks. I ironically am picture 287. They picked me out and said I was a Jamaican drug kingpin simply due to the fact that I had dreadlocks at that time before they became fashionable. I found out that the police was looking for me, and at the time I was purchasing 2-3-story buildings up in 46 in Westminster. And having been locked up before, I knew the procedures. And being the fact that I didn't have bail money at the time, I didn't want to lose my properties, so I went on what they call the run, which I really wasn't running. I was just trying to acquire the rest of the balance so that my daughters would eventually have something, because I knew the procedure. I would be in prison for at least a year before I was finally exonerated or found not guilty. I went to Connecticut with a friend to see a friend of mine that I was with in the Marine Corps. And he knew a guy that was of undeterminable ethnic origin. He was Greek and something else. And he had $90,000 worth of art that he was trying to sell, which he was going to give me 10% if I could find a buyer. So we were coming back from Connecticut and on the New Jersey Turnpike, and he had a cracked tail light on his 81 Lincoln town car. The police pulled us over like 3 miles from exit 4. And you know, they racially profiled, but you can come up with any excuse if you're the police. And they pulled me out of the car. I was actually asleep in the back seat. And they asked me for ID, yada, yada, yada. And they found a defaced automatic pistol in the car. Ironically, the front passenger, who was also pulled out the car, had the holster to the weapon in his trench coat pocket. Ironically, I was the only one when I woke up the next morning in the Burlington County Jail. I was the only one still there. So they found out through running the check that I was wanted for a homicide in Philadelphia. So on December the 1st, 1988, they extradited me to Philadelphia, and I was placed in the Holmesburg County Jail, which at that time, in that decade, it was horrendous. I was immediately being mislabeled Jamaican drug kingpin due to the fact of an incident that happened in 1987 where a 5-year-old kid by the name of Marcus Yates got killed in a crossfire in a candy store up in southwest Philadelphia.
It was 1988 when two drug dealers walked in and began fighting. Marcus Yates was the youngest brother, just 5 years old, caught in the crossfire.
Anybody from the islands, anybody that talked funny, anybody that had dreadlocks, or anybody that even had on Clark or Bally boots was automatically labeled as Jamaican and was subsequent to a vicious beating, a stabbing, or being extorted, things of that nature.
Federal agents and local police arrested more than 200 alleged members of Jamaican gangs or posses, reputed to be some of the most violent gangsters in the country.
Quick question. How long it took before they put you on trial? How long did it take before you go to trial and all that stuff?
21 months.
21 months?
Yeah, I started trial in the beginning of March 90. And as I said, I was brought to Holmesburg Prison December the 1st of 88.
Did you went head up or you picked 12?
I picked 12.
Picked 12.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to prove my innocence.
Right.
My trial was a farce. I've later found out during my studies that the assistant district attorney who prosecuted my case, he was fresh out the academy. And according to law, being the fact that they at first was asking for the death penalty, which is a tactic that they use to trick you into pleading guilty, he wasn't even qualified to handle my case. Yeah, they used my trial as a training tool, which later on, 32 years later, helped me get my case, my life sentence overturned.
So you said you picked 12, you lost the jury, you lost to a jury. They sent you upstate. What was the first jail you had to?
Well, back then, the classification center was Granderford Prison. I was convicted on May the 5th, 1990, and 4 days later, on May the 9th, they sent me to Granderford. A kid from South Philadelphia got shot to death on Broad Street 15 times with a 9, and some kind of way, shape, or form, they thought it was me. So they actually surrounded me in I-block yard, and it was at least 12 to 15 of them, all of them had knives. And it's funny when I look back at it, even though it's not a laughing matter, I just knew that I was going to die, and I did now understand what the Native Americans call the death chant, because I actually went into my form and said to myself that I wasn't going to die by myself. I was going to take at least 1 or 2 of them with me, even if I had to bite them in their jugular vein, because I had no weapons. And show you how God and the ancestors looked out. The night before the guy that had got killed, older brother had got brought to Holmesburg, and he came out in the yard at the very moment that they was going to stab me up, and they all hollered, "Bub, Bub, we got him, this him, ain't it? This him, ain't it?" And he was like, "No, that ain't him, that's that Jamaican dude that they say killed his own brother. Leave him alone, he ain't had nothing to do with it." You know, so due to that, people in Holmesburg Prison started recognizing me, and I ended up becoming the second shift trash man. So I was able to cater services to the prisoners.
Get some legs.
Being the fact that, you know, I know myself and know different cultures and things of that nature, serving my sentence, I got known as the leader of the West Indian community, which was funny. And at the time, it victimized me because anytime somebody from the Caribbean beat or stabbed up, a black American, and they couldn't find out who it was, they was like, just give it to Hughes, he's the leader. And that affected me both negatively and positively during my stint of 32 years. I stayed down there 11 months, and I had actually petitioned Camp Hill to send some representatives down there because, they was trying to kill us. They came to my cell 16 deep to kill me at Gradford, and it just so happened the lie that one of their homies had told them, I actually had his 4-page statement in my discovery, and I ripped it out and made myself a pass after I made my little knife-proof jacket, vest or whatever, and I walked down there to show them, and they knew I was telling the truth because they could read it for themselves. They knew I wasn't from their neighborhood, right. And they seen, the
paperwork.
They seen the paperwork.
Don't lie.
Yeah, so they came to my cell and they told me, I told them, I said, oh, y'all can't come in here. I had greased up the floor and put all kind of barricades to keep them from being able to run in 2 or 3 at a time. And they told me, they said, man, as long as you be at this prison, you don't have nothing to worry about.
So you went from Rutherford to Campbell?
No, they sent me to Huntington.
Huntington was your first stop?
The second stop.
Oh, your second stop. Gradford was the first stop.
And Huntington was notorious back then.
Right. Because Huntington is a whole jail, they say, right?
Yeah, it's like an old penitentiary. It used to be, back in the 30s, it was a boys' home. They actually showed you films on the prison channel.
Gradford is an old jail too, right?
Yeah.
That was like an old jail, no air conditioning, none of that.
No. But I want to rewind for a minute because it's very important. While I was at Holmesburg on September the 29th, 1989, they had a riot on the block that I lived on, our block, and it's noted. They lied and they beat us with iron pipes, hosed us down with water hoses, and if it wasn't for the firemen telling on the police, it would have been swept under the rug. But almost everybody on the block got paid, and I eventually was awarded $3,500 for that, which helped me, being the fact that I didn't have nobody out in the street to send me any money or assist me in acquiring some of the amenities of prison life. I was able to buy myself a typewriter, a Foot Locker, a TV.
Organ, piano?
No, I inherited that from a friend. A couple pair of sneaks and things of that nature. But the typewriter was the most important. Oh, and 2 law books. Because I knew that the only way I was going to be able to correct this sentence was that if I had to study and learn the law myself, because it seemed that everybody else was either telling me lies or wanted an enormous amount of money to appeal my case, which I didn't have, and no means of being able to obtain it.
What year was this?
This was actually 1991, because 91 is when they sent me to Huntington. I was the last person off the transportation bus and the very first person that the PRC saw. As soon as they saw my hair, I was put in the RHU for refusing to get a haircut. I stayed in the hole about 2.5 years, fighting for my religious rights until it didn't seem feasible anymore. So I cut my hair down to come out the hole and start learning the law. In fact, I'm the very first person in the state system to receive a hair exemption in 1995, so I didn't have to trim my locks anymore. Huntington, like I said, was a little notorious back then. But fortunately, being the fact that English was my major, I was able to obtain a job as a tutor, which gained me favoritism with both the inmates and the staff.
And this is in Huntington. This is at the beginning of it.
Yeah, this was in Huntington when I came out the whole end of '92.
So that means you already got like 3 years in already.
No.
That went 4 because you got to catch
That's
up
right.
in
Yeah, that's 4 years. I had 4 years in.
And how much years they took out of you in Huntington? How much years they did in Huntington?
I got locked down in '96. To obtain funds, you know, I had a little what they call jailhouse store. If anybody been in the prison system or did any research, they know what that encompasses. And I used to cook very well, so I ended up selling dinners every Sunday. Even the staff used to buy meals off me. Being the fact that I was a lifer and I had some integrity, didn't steal, the Lifers Association came and recruited me to run their soda truck. And so I was able to move around the prison kind of freely. Yeah, I moved around the prison kind of freely.
And this is in the early 90s.
This is in the early 90s. A couple of guys tried to recruit me to their crew because of the position that I had in the prison, but
Probably could go to all the different blocks. That's why, right?
yeah, I didn't take kindly to that. So they lied on me to the security office, and they said in '96 that I had a handcuff key that a guard had lost a week earlier, and the security office got to act on that. So they locked me down and locked my cell down for a week. They even scraped the paint off the walls, looking behind paint bubbles for this handcuff key. And ironically, 6 months after I'm already in the RHU, another inmate turned the handcuff key in to get his friend out of a misconduct. While I was in the RHU, I stopped a riot while we was out in the yard, and staff observed it, and I guess through informants found out that I had actually stopped the riot. So one day, as they were bringing me back from the RHU's little law library, they asked me when I got to minimum custody, would I become a runner? And I didn't know how to take that because the runners was known as snitches and were informants working for the police. But I knew I could be a help if I was actually out there. So I asked guys like JoJo Bowens and Lumumba, and they was like, yeah, we need you out there. So I became a runner out there, which was pretty good. I made sure everybody got served and, you know, try to look out for other guys that talk to other guys that was acting up in their cells so they wouldn't get distracted. Then what happened, oh, it was so ironic. One of the other workers found a handcuff key that a guard had lost in the hole. And I noticed, you know, when there's tension in the air, you can actually feel it. The air becomes heavy, like you cut it with a knife. So I asked one of the other workers, I said, what's going on? They said, man, don't you know? I was like, what? So-and-so found a handcuff key, and the guards is going crazy. I was like, oh no, they're gonna automatically think it's me because that's what I'm over here for in the first place. So I went to the guy and I was like, yo, you found a handcuff key? And he was like, yeah. I said, man, get that shit back. I said, they ain't gonna do nothing to make us lose our jobs, get locked down, search down, and lose all the stuff we done acquired. I can, I sold it to so-and-so. And sure enough, I was scheduled to be transferred to Greene County, Greene County, and the sergeant, Muscudiak, when I seen him bringing the property over, I didn't see my property in the car. I was like, hey, Muscudiak, where's my stuff? He said, you know handcuff key, man. I was so upset. I had nothing to do with it whatsoever. And they eventually...
So they labeled you as a handcuff key, man.
Yeah, they eventually found out, and that was December 30th, 97. They sent me to SCI Green, and being the fact that I was, I forget what they call it, it's been a while, but they kept me in the hole on AC status, administrative custody. They kept me in the hole about 6 months, and I went to PRC every month, and I found out that they had filled my jacket up with so much stuff that I didn't even have nothing to do with. I must have had a good 19, 20 assaults that was attributed to me that, you know, all but only 6 of them I even knew who they was talking about. You know, they held that against me. And finally, in June of 98, they let me out in Greene County. They let me out in population in Greene County. And once again, God and ancestors favored me because, you know, I wasn't there a week. Nobody knew me. Police automatically scrutinizing me because when you look at human behavior, by me being new and my dreadlocks were so long, I used to wrap them around my head like a turban. My beard had grew in dreadlocks. So they was actually calling me Bin Laden. And it just so happened I was coming out the mess hall one day and I looked down in the grass and I saw an orange handle adjustable wrench. Common sense, being in prison and knowing how the administration think, if the wrong person find this and keep it, the jail is going to be put down on lockdown. So I happened to look down the walkway, and sure enough, I seen the maintenance crew way down by the gym, looking around, looking down at the ground. So I slid down and grabbed the wrench and put it in my pocket. And I walked down there, and I said, excuse me, y'all looking for this? Oh, thank you. So their supervisor was Denny Blicker. He looked at me, he said, they owe you a favor, and thank you, man, because I was going to get my butt reamed, and they were all going to go to the RHU. And it just so happened that the ramrod of his maintenance crew, I didn't even see him, I didn't even recognize him. He was one of my customers at Huntington who I used to sell swag sandwiches to. And he was like, hey, Wayzo, how you doing? He said, so the guy said, the supervisor said, listen, man, if you ever need a favor, you know, my name is Denny Blaker, let me know. I said, I need a favor now. He said, what you need? I said, I need a job so that I can introduce myself to this administration so they don't judge me by my appearance. And he laughed. He said, what can you do? I said, I can do anything. But the main thing I can do is follow instructions to the letter. And he laughed and he told me some BS about I had to write the employment department and put in for a job, yada, yada, yada. So I wrote them every day. And I didn't get no responses. And finally, I wrote him a request slip. And I said on the request slip, I said, dear Mr. Blaker, if I don't get some employment in the immediate future, I'm going to be forced to have to resort to criminal activity to sustain myself. And he laughed and called me up and gave me a job that very day. And I ended up becoming the main welder at SCI Green.
SCI Green is a rough jail. I think they say that's rougher than Huntington, right?
Yeah, it was just as rough as Huntington. I don't see, the difference is most of the things at Greene County is outside. At Huntington, everything is on the inside.
Okay, so how long you did in Greene?
5.5 years.
And then the next stop was where?
I did good at Greene. Greene is where I got most of my certifications because I got under National Center for Construction Education and Research, I got licenses in rough and fine carpentry, residential and commercial wiring, siding, roofing, all of that. I did all of that at SCI Green. I actually got a promotional transfer from Green to SCI Frackville, which was I later found out was a joke.
Well, Frackville, what was so nice about Frackville?
No, not nice. Frackville is the worst state prison in the Pennsylvania prison system.
So how was the promotion? Explain that.
Exactly. That's what even staff and prisoners said to me when I got there. They said, oh, they trick you with that? This ain't no promotional jail. This is a demotional jail.
How long you spent in there? 6
years. I ended up causing a hunger strike in the hole in 2008. And the superintendent Shannon came to my cell in the middle of the night around about 11:30, 12 o'clock and told me if I stopped filing paperwork, that the next time I go to PRC, they was gonna cut my DC time, put me on AC status and get me out of there.
So we went from Rutherford to Green.
No, from Graniford to Huntington. From Huntington to Greene County.
Huntington to Greene County.
And from Greene County, I got a promotional transfer to Frackville.
And from Frackville to?
From Frackville, I was sent to Frackville from the RHU because they accused me of causing a hunger strike, which I did. They weren't feeding us. It was crazy. It was so bad that one day I screamed out the cell when the deputy superintendent came over there, and I challenged him to open up the food cart and just take a look at one of the trays. And he even said, oh no, they gotta put more food on here. And they did for about 2-3 days. Then went right back to the way they was feeding us. They was basically starving us.
What, the jail was locked down or something?
No, that was just how they was treating you when you were in the RHU.
Oh, in the hole, that was in the hole, okay, yeah, that was in the hole.
So they got me out of there in 2009 and sent me to Housedale. When I came out in Housedale, they had an incident between the Bloods and the Crips out in the yard. And some guys got really, really hurt bad. So they locked the jail down for a couple weeks. And when the superintendent and the deputy superintendent came around, and the major, they came around, me and a prisoner right next door to me, because we were both Z codes, which means single cell status. His name is Eric Riddick. He just recently got out about a year ago, got his sentence overturned. And we told him, we hollered out and said, listen, if you want some ideas on how to curb some of this violence, call us up. And sure enough, about a week later, they called me, him, and about 7 other prisoners up and allowed us to start a prison inmate organization called Journey for Change, JFC. And I became the fundraising director. No, first I was the membership director. They didn't believe I would be able to cultivate a membership of 300. I cultivated a membership of 500. And when the fund director got caught stealing, they elevated me to the fundraising director. So I was the one in charge of cultivating funds to fuel the organization and be able to donate to the community outside and other charities and things of that nature. I was doing really good at Housedale. I ended up even working in the CI shop, Correctional Industries. And the Correctional Industries at Housedale, it was basically commissary. And they supplied the commissary that inmates purchased at about 9 different facilities. And within 2 months, one of the supervisors gave me the run of the potato chip store. You know, so I was doing good there until once again I got in trouble with the administration. You know.
And from Harrisdale, you end up?
Yeah, they
in Benner?
They sent me to Benner, SCI Benner. I did good at Benner too. At first I was given a job as a shower cleaner on the block. That was the highest paying job as a block worker. And then I was given a position of the block tutor, which was really the highest paying job. And from then, I ended up becoming the facilitator of the reentry program. I was the initial facilitator of the reentry program. In fact, this may sound like bragging, but the staff at Huntington who wanted to start a reentry program there actually came to Benner and copied my lesson plans. We had a lot of organizations that came in, and I met a lot of people that worked in places like Career Link and things of that nature. They had told me after they heard the way I taught classes that if I ever got out, to come see them and gave me their cards.
Okay, so here we're going to rewind it to the beginning now. So, what year you start to study the law now? What year you start to pursue the law? I know you buy a typewriter from me, I was like 100. So you start sending out all the emotions or whatever you need to send out, right?
No. The funny thing about it, at Huntington, I had a mental block against the law because it was too contradictory for me. Having studied English most of my life, every time I looked at a case law or I looked at a claim, you had five case laws that said yay, and then you had 6 case laws that said nay. So I created a mental brick wall up against it. Every time I read a law book or a case law, one or two things happen. I either got a headache or I got sleepy. So I had started hustling, little jailhouse hustles, to try to acquire enough money to at that time retain this lawyer in Philadelphia who was kind of hot. And it seemed like every time I got a certain amount of money, something on that job ended up in the RHU. So it was like I was King Sisyphus rolling that big boulder up the hill and kept rolling back on it. The only thing that I was involved in legally at Huntington was I had filed a lawsuit about them trying to force me to cut my hair. I started studying the law when I got locked down at Huntington. Yeah, when I got locked down at Huntington, while I was in the RHU, I said to myself, I gotta learn this stuff. So rather than just sit back there in the RHU, exercising or just reading books, I made sure that I went to the RHU's law library as much as possible per week, which ended up being 3 or 4 times a week, because a lot of prisoners back there wasn't actually going to the law library. They didn't want to go through all the procedures that you had to do in order to be taken there. And when I came out in population at Greene County, back then, if you got a misconduct, you could ask another a prisoner to represent you at your misconduct hearing. So, you know, my vocal skills, my argument skills, a lot of prisoners used to ask me to represent them at their misconduct hearing. And one day while we was waiting over there to be called in, I noticed a guy named Bruce Pettiford. He actually worked in the law library, and he was also, you know, being utilized as representing other inmates at misconduct hearings. So I talked to him, and I told him, I said, listen, man, I don't want you to do my legal work. I got my own typewriter. I'm pretty good at understanding the English language. I just want you to teach me. And he said, sure. You know, so I used to pay him. All he liked it was to be able to smoke cigarettes and drink coffee. So I kept him supplied with tobacco and coffee. And this guy didn't really teach me. It was funny. He just had me reading case laws and DA's briefs and other lawyers' briefs. And he said, listen, man, you good at English. He said, just keep reading and you're going to get it. And I was really becoming frustrated. But I was motivated by the fact that I had to learn. So I kept reading, I kept reading. And I'm telling you, Billy, one day, just like he said, it just clicked. It was like a light just turned on in my head. So I started practicing. And the way I started practicing was, I started doing legal petitions for non-English speaking prisoners because it was an easy win to get an evidentiary hearing. When you're trying to appeal your conviction, the first thing that you try to acquire is an evidentiary hearing. Because evidentiary hearing, coming from the word evidence, is when you be able to present evidence that possibly wasn't presented or what your lawyer failed to present at your trial or what you discovered after your conviction. And being the fact that they didn't have any Spanish-speaking paralegals assigned to the institutional law library or any paralegals that would assist you in filing a petition, it was an easy win. It was an easy win for me to win you an evidentiary hearing. So through trial and error, I really started learning and knowing the nuances of the appeal process.
So that's really get your first jump start from with the law.
Exactly.
So Ben is when I meet you. We had a big store and you used to extradite me and all that kind of thing in Benin. How we both go for you in Benin? Because I see you used to run the card, like I said, I meet you as a big person in Benin. It was no small fry. You had a big store like you said.
Yeah,
I never was bigger than the store in Huntington, but you had a big store in Benin. You had workers in Benin.
Yeah, well, once again, I always align myself with, the prison or the institutional organizations because basically, it gives you some exposure. You got prisoners that's so cynical, they don't want to have nothing to do with the police. They don't talk to police. They don't talk to the administration. How you gonna succeed? How you gonna move around? How you gonna get anywhere? You need exposure for a person, that's not a prisoner, a staff member or one of the people that's coming in visiting from certain organizations to be able to see your character, your demeanor, your personality, your articulation, your intelligence, your mentality. So I always align myself, and I'm not a trusting person because there'd be a lot of corruption, be a lot of corruption in these organizations. So truthfully, I always stayed with the money committee so that I could make sure that things was ran right and people wasn't stealing. And I end up having a lot of problems about that. Especially when I was at Benin.
You say you had a lot of problems with that before we were dealing with the police?
No, not dealing with the police, dealing with other organization members, because they want their little piece of the pie.
Oh, yeah.
Why you worried about, if we have a sale, why you worried about stealing 6 boxes of donuts? Are you serious? You worry about, you already gonna get 2 or 3 boxes for free anyway. Then the ones that you buy, you only gonna pay the base price. You're not gonna pay what everybody else is being charged. So, you're still petty minded. So.
When you know you're getting free, when you feel like freedom, taste of freedom.
I had made my will, my constitution. When I say my will, I'm not talking about a written will, I'm talking about will, the force of power mentally. I had made my will that I refused to die in prison. I never believed that I was going to die in prison. I felt strongly that I was going to one day be able to get out. So what I did was I made the study of the law my second religion. And it was funny because what actually happened, a lot of times things that's negative turn into things that's positive or they lay the foundation for good things to come your way, even though it seems bad. The district attorney's office and the Commonwealth basically hid my appeal for over 25 years, and that worked to my benefit at the last moment. But for 20 years I studied the law, and what I did was I practiced by helping others that was in prison. Helping, you know, I got a few dudes out, got a few dudes granted parole, and I even got some younger inmates sent to boot camp instead of their prison sentence, just with a simple letter to the judge, because coming up in Catholic school, my forte was writing skills, communication arts. And things, you know, things that was going against me, my judge, I had a judge by the name of William Mazzola. He had my appeal for 20 years. And he ended up retiring. He first got sick, and I actually wrote him a letter and told him please get well, because, you know, I had a personal stake in his health. I did not, at that stage of the game, need my case to be assigned to, you know, another judge. I'm quite sure he probably laughed when he read that. But anyway, he ended up retiring, and they gave my case to this black female judge, Granola Brinkley, who was infamous in the news for the rapper Meek Mills. She granted me an evidentiary hearing on a claim, and then she ended up recusing herself for potential bias, because the assistant district attorney that prosecuted my case back in 1990, who I watched his career the whole time, you know, he ended up becoming a judge in 2012. And so, to my benefit, all the judges in Philadelphia County end up having to recuse themselves for potential bias, because they wouldn't be able to impartially overhear an appeal against one of their, you know, constituents, one of their judges. So the Creator and the ancestors blessed me. They gave me a senior judge out of Berks County named Stephen B. Lieberman. And the irony is that he told the whole courtroom, because at the time the pandemic was to a degree that we weren't allowed to actually go to court, so we was having video court hearings. And he admonished the whole courtroom and told them that when he first accepted my appeal, he just knew it was going to be an easy denial and he would never have to leave out of his courtroom over in Berks County. He said, but when he studied my procedural history and saw that it was actually my very first appeal that the Commonwealth had been hiding under the rug for 25 years, you know, he wasn't having that. And I was thankful and fortunate that, you know, he had that type of integrity. And that made him divulge and read my transcripts. And he told the court, he said, this man's trial was a farce. There were so many constitutional violations that occurred in the course of his trial. I don't have any choice but to grant him a new trial.
Hold on, let me ask you a question. So, the very first time you got your appeal, this was the very, very first appeal you got through?
Yes and no. And the reason I say that, you would have to have a little teeny bit of knowledge of criminal appellate law to really understand where I'm coming from. But here in Pennsylvania, you basically, in the state of Pennsylvania, you basically have 6 appeals. 3 in the state and 3 in the federal courts. Your very first appeal that you have in the state is called your direct appeal. Now, unfortunately, your direct appeal is really, by law, Pennsylvania Constitution, Article 5, subsection 9, is basically your most important appeal. However, the last day of 2002, December 31st, they actually sabotaged your direct appeal because they passed the law called Commonwealth versus Grant, which meant that you could no longer raise ineffective assistance of counsel claims at the trial stages on direct appeal. Now, to a degree, even though it's law, that's a trick. Because if you didn't represent yourself at trial or any of the pre-trial proceedings, then that means that you had a lawyer. You were represented by an attorney. So anything that went wrong, I wouldn't care if it was prosecutorial misconduct. They're going to label it ineffective assistance of counsel because they're going to want to know, well, did your lawyer preserve the issue by making a motion, an oral motion in court? And if not, you're screwed. So they relegated, Commonwealth versus Grant, relegated all ineffective assistance of counsel claims to the post-conviction relief appeal, otherwise known as the PCRA. So I had a direct appeal, yes, but it was dismissed without prejudice. All my claims were dismissed without prejudice under the guise of ineffective assistance of counsel claims, even prosecutorial misconduct claims, to be raised on a PCRA. So this was my very first appeal, per se, because it was my first PCRA, re-raising the issues that had been raised in a court some 10, 15 years earlier on the PCRA. It was the very first time that I was going to actually have these issues and claims reviewed and ruled on. And when he saw that, he was very, very upset about that, how they had delayed for decades, my appeal. And, I knew that God was actually granting me, God and the ancestors was granting me some relief, because once he seen my claims, anybody that with any amount of integrity or common sense would know that, they illegally and unlawfully convicted me and stole 32 years of my life.
And this was in the year 2018?
No, this was in 2019.
This was in 2019?
Yeah. And keep in mind now, I got arrested October the 27th, 1988.
So drive us through that moment. What day was it when you went to court?
The day I went to court, well, I actually had 3 court dates. One was, I believe, June 27th, because what I did was I filed a motion to waive counsel and requested what is known as a Grazier hearing, Commonwealth versus Grazier. It is basically a competency hearing when you're giving up your right to be represented by counsel and want to represent yourself, which in Latin terminology is proceed pro se. And the judge had to make sure that I was doing this willingly, knowingly, and intelligently. And my stance and position was that at this stage of the game, any lawyer, I don't care how good he was, that had been appointed, because I didn't have any money, that had been appointed to me, it would have took entirely too long for him to realize the nuances that occurred in my case.
Right.
Nobody knows my case better than me. So, my thing was, if it was going to fail and I was going to have to spend the rest of my life in prison, let it be because of my failings and not somebody else.
Right.
Knowing that you be hamstrung by certain things that you can't say, what they call courtroom protocol or courtroom etiquette. I wrote the judge 2 personal letters, and I feel good. This ain't egotistical or pretentious, but the judge actually at first did not believe that I was the author of the letters. He actually asked me during the court proceedings that I, was I the author of the letter, and he ended up finding out by the vernacular that I used that was me. And he told the district attorney's office, he said, I brought the letter with me because I'm providing y'all with a copy of this man's letter, and it's the best written letter that I've received in the whole 25 years I've been on the bench, because there were certain things that I wanted him to know, certain things that I wanted him to point out that I couldn't take the chance of them glossing over, you know. And yeah, so I was successful. He granted me pro se status. I don't know how my attorney felt about it, you know, but no disrespect to him. He was too young. He was only 8 years old when my case happened, and you know, I couldn't take that chance. He ended up, the judge asked me to allow him to reinstate him just for the purposes of a plea agreement, because I had my second hearing on August the 28th, when the judge granted my PCRA and allowed me to proceed pro se, and he wanted to give me 6 months, 180 days, to file a supplemental or amended PCRA, and I told him right on the record that I didn't need that amount of time because I was already prepared. I have been preparing myself for 32 years.
Right. You just adding on more time on their sentence.
Yeah, I just needed my day in court.
Right.
And show you the power of the Creator and the ancestors. 5 days later, 5 days after August 28th, I received institutional mail notification from the, I believe, the records office or one of them, that I was scheduled for another video court hearing. And I was like, intuitively, I believed what it had to be, but I wasn't sure. And because it didn't make no sense. You gave me 90 days to file a supplemental or amended PCRA. Why am I having another hearing 5 days later? It's going to be kind of difficult by being that you're incarcerated and we're not bringing anybody down to court. So is it all right with you if I reinstate your attorney just solely for the purposes of the plea negotiations? And to be truthful, I didn't really want that. But at the same time,
it's an extra hand, it's an extra mind, right?
At the same time, I got a judge that's
recommending, helping you out, looking out for you.
Basically in my corner.
Right, looking out for you.
You know, I don't want to upset him. See what I mean? So, okay, fine. Because the bottom line is, I'm not just going to accept anything. And sure enough, you know, I'm not going to say it was him. It probably came from the district attorney's office or the head of the homicide division or the homicide division. They actually came to me and wanted me to plead guilty to third-degree murder, 25 to 50, which would have had me on parole for the remainder of my life, because at the time I was 65 years old. And I actually laughed, because they didn't know who they was dealing with, you know. I told them straight point blank, I said, can't do that. I said the statutory maximum for third-degree murder when I was convicted back in 1990 was 20 years. So anything that you try to give me over that would be known as an ex post facto law violation. And I seen his face drop. And like I said, he was young. The law actually changed, I believe, 93, 95, when they changed the statutory maximum. So he went back and, you know, he asked him, and I told him, yeah, he's right.
Right.
So they came to me with to 10 to 20 years with a, what do they call that? A consecutive sentence of 2.5 to 5 for PIC, which is possession of an instrument of crime. Truthfully, I didn't want to take anything. I wanted to go back to trial and be exonerated because I was innocent. And I knew I was innocent all of those years. I did not commit this crime. But at the same time, I couldn't take the chance. I was, you know, the doors was opening.
Oh, yeah, that's time served.
You know, and so they eventually ended up giving me 12.5 to 25 time served on September the 11th. And the funny thing about it was, the assistant district attorney actually asked the judge to impose a $38,000 fine. And the judge looked at him and admonished him. He was like, what? This man is 7 years over the legal maximum of what we could have gave him. Let the man go. Yeah, so September the 14th, 3 days later, the gates flew open for me. And the funny thing about it was, after serving 32 years in prison, I didn't even really have anywhere to go, because as I told you in the first part of this documentary, I was adopted. I didn't really have any family, and ironically, a young prisoner who I had tutored so that he could pass his GED, and gave him mock parole interviews so he would know how to address the parole board when he came up for parole. He was from Jersey. He actually said to me, he was like, "Oh gee, ain't you scared?" I was like, "Scared of what?" He said, "You've been locked up all these decades and the world ain't changed." And I was like, "Bruh, the world ain't changed. Only thing that changed is society's technology, and we don't control that." I said, people out there still doing the same thing that they was doing prior to me getting arrested. The only thing different now is everybody got a cell phone. Because I had never had a cell phone in my hand. They didn't even have these type of cell phones when I got arrested. So I told him, I said, man, I'm just going to, my faith is strong, and I've been prepared for this my whole life because I done lived in about 7 states and maybe 18 to 20 different cities. So I'm just going to present myself to the world. I don't even have nowhere to go, but I ain't afraid. He was like, what? You ain't got nowhere to go? He said, man, come to the phone. And he put me on the phone with his mom. And he had so much faith in, my communication skills, he didn't even explain nothing to his mom. He just told his mom, "Mom, I need you to talk to this man right here." And I told her, a brief synopsis of my situation and my story, and she told me, she said, well, listen, me and my husband, we have a lot of properties, but they're all leased and rented out. She said, but we have a place that'll take you in, but you're gonna have to follow and abide by their rules. And I laughed. I said, man, I got 32 years of forced patience. There's no stipulations that they can put on me that would be greater than what I had to have, go to a halfway house or a CC center or something like that. She said, okay, and sure enough, she sent 2 gentlemen to pick me up at the Greyhound bus station down Center City, Philadelphia, 12 o'clock at night. And I knew I received a sign from the Creator and the ancestors, because the place that they took me was 1 block away from where I used to live. 1 block away.
You took it right back to home.
And I knew it was a sign, so I stayed there a couple of months, which was a heck of a transition, because I had to stay in a room with 3 other guys. The past 20, 25 years I was in prison, I was Z-coded, which is single cell status. I didn't have to share my small space. So it was an adjustment period, but I was adaptable to it, and I really thank the people because they helped me out a lot. They fed me 3 times a day. I was able to take a shower, use the bathroom, I had a bed to sleep in, and they had a program where I was able to, apply for medical assistance and get food stamps and things like that. And then finally, I contacted the Veterans Administration, the Veterans Multicultural Center down, it's close to 4th and Race, 4th and Vine, and because I'm a vet, I was in the Marine Corps, and they helped me out. They put me on my feet. They put me in a beautiful hotel that was extended stay American, that was basically like efficiency apartments. You had your own cooking area, living room light, and you had your bedroom, bathroom. It was really, really nice, So I was there for a couple of months, and got my daughter's mother, they allowed me to let her move in with me. She had sold a little house that she had, so she moved in with me. And this was, 2020. So December of 2020, I didn't know they had 40 other vets that were staying at this hotel. So the middle of December, they put notices under all of our doors telling us that we had to evacuate the premises by January the 1st. A woman, my sister by the name of Letitia Fauntleroy, she was my employment case manager for the Veterans Multicultural Center, and Jordan Ross. And they sent me a landlord's list that had 105 entries on there for, houses or apartments to rent. And ironically, during that time, the only thing that was immediately available was the very last entry, number 105. So we ended up moving into a 2-bedroom home down in the Badlands, which is Kensington for those that's not from Philly and don't know. Yeah, we moved down to Windsor Street between Kensington and Allegheny and Kensington and Tioga. And I just stayed diligent. Ironically, what I was doing for money, the very first month I was out was when they was having the campaign for Pamela Harris and the current president. I was running around on a daily basis putting up the flyers and posters for $25 a day to keep having money in my pocket, so that's how that went. But I was a little upset, not so much upset, but disenchanted, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to be involved in sharing the lessons I learned from the mistakes I made and the acquired information, knowledge, and understanding that I received through all those years of study and all of the situations that I went in. Because while I was in prison, I was the original facilitator for most of the therapeutic programs that they had at each facility. I was the original facilitator for the reentry program, stress and anger management, social etiquette, which is definitely still needed now. That would help solve some of these situations that we have out here in society currently. And because I don't even think they done lost the understanding of etiquette. Some of these young people, I don't even think they know what it is or even how to spell it. And healthy relationships, things of that nature. And this is what I aspire to be in, because I have to leave a legacy. I don't want my life, when I'm finally called home to the Father, I don't want to have just been known for somebody that was in and out of prison his entire life.
Okay, I'm glad you touched that subject as far as leaving a legacy. We're glad to get this interview with you in person, and we have to do this behind your back as far as you pass away and somebody had to tell your stories, you telling your story. What you have to tell these youths and them nowadays who facing that kind of lifestyle and who you think or who you know will eventually end up in this predicament where you end up? What you advise them to do without preaching to them? Tell them directly about the lifestyle and what they're heading to or what they choose to end up in.
Man, you gotta take a breath. Life is just like creation. Sometimes it rains, sometimes it snows, sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. You gotta ride with that. Everything is not gonna be always good every day. You wouldn't know the benefit of a smooth road unless you rode over a rough road. Because when you go through hard times, it builds fortitude, it builds strength, it builds character. Come on, man, we killing ourselves. We gotta learn how to start being good neighbors to one another, a decent man. This is just the bottom line. Oh, this shit ain't gonna change, man. This shit is not gonna change. It's just gonna get worse and worse and worse. And I'm gonna tell you something. You may not believe it, and I hope you don't end up having the experience to know that I was telling you the truth. When your ass get locked up, you can be in that cell crying, just like a little baby. Because just imagine me as a guard, and I come up to you and I tell you, nigga, bend over and drop your pants and spread your cheeks, because I want to make sure you ain't got no drugs stuck up in your anus. Open up your mouth, stick your tongue out. Hold your balls up. Hold your shaft up. That shit is demeaning. And this is the type of shit that you're gonna end up having to go through, man.
That's after you spread your ass cheeks, they make you put your hands in your mouth.
You know, this is the type of shit, and you don't want that. You don't want that, man. You wanna live, you wanna be out here and enjoy life, because that's what it's about. It's about enjoying life, because life is precious, man. You ain't guaranteed for so many years on this planet. You know what I mean? So come on, don't do stupid shit. Long as you try to progress, you're gonna make mistakes, but you don't never want to make fatal mistakes. So this is what you got to do, man. You got to take self-evaluation on what you're involved in, where you heading, and how you want to get there.